What's up, Jet fans? Obviously, you know by now that Greg Z was cut, so I'll throw in a couple different topics in this video. He was released along with Thomas Morstead. The Jets strip about 6+ million in cap space between two special teamers. Greg Z obviously was terrible last year. Morstead was really good in 2023, but even he had a Morstead quietly was like the 20th best punter in the NFL last year. So some penny pinching at special teams. They do have that UDFA punter that they added, and they have Carlson and the kicker Davis from Ole Miss that'll be competing for those spots. And it goes with the youth movement. The Jets have only three roster players who are 30 or over, with their long snapper Hennessy, Reynolds at wide receiver, and then Tyrod Taylor. So when the Jets open their opening day roster, I would wager will probably be one of the top three youngest teams in the NFL. That seems to be a priority for the new coaching staff and front office is when in doubt, go young. And I think Clemons could be the next cut. And Clemons is sneaky, not that young. Clemons is going to be 28 years old when the season opens. Clemons is 7 years older than Braylon Allen, even though they were drafted 2 years apart. So I think he kind of is what he is at this point. And I mean, let's be honest. If Michael Clemons is your fourth defensive end, is that the end of the world? Probably not. But if you could roster somebody who costs you, 800,000 instead of almost 4 million and is 22, then why wouldn't you just do that? Right. The Jets did add another UDFA defensive lineman and Michael Fletcher, who's, got 8 collegiate sacks. He's a big dude, 6'5", 275. So he just goes in the mix there with players like Barron, Watts, McGregor, and now this added UDFA, obviously probably maybe 2 to 3 spots behind JJ Will McDonald. So why not just go with some of those young guys? Seems like you don't have much to lose. And if you're willing to pinch pennies at punter for Morstead, for a guy who's actually been good relatively recently and it seemed like a really good locker room guy, then I think then you should be able to pinch pennies at edge number 4, all the same. So I think Clemons may not be long for the roster. It might be a cap casualty there because he hit, because of his snap percentage, he hit like an escalator. So it would be almost 4 million to keep Clemons, which is not negligible cap space. So I think he'll probably be gone. Chris Olave. Now, and to be clear, there's nothing connecting him and the Jets unless you want to make conclusions about he might want to play with his former collegiate quarterback because he retweeted when Justin Fields signed with the Jets. But Andrew Filipponi, who is a reporter for the Steelers, said that the Steelers and the Saints have had some mutual discussions about trading Chris Olave. The Saints are probably just want to strip that thing down to the studs. He's been pretty vocal and unhappy with his role in New Orleans the last couple of years. So stands to reason he could be moved. And the Jets needed a wide receiver, but to me, the concussion thing is just a poison pill for any kind of trade. I don't know how you get around that because he had a concussion his freshman year at Ohio State. He had a concussion his last year at Ohio State. And then in 3 years in the NFL, he had a concussion his rookie year. He had a concussion his second year. He had 2 concussions last year where he has a concussion week 6, has to miss, week 7, week 8, comes back week 9, concussion. This is not linear, right? This is exponential, especially when you start to get them closer together. I think if you were to trade for Olave and then extend him, we'd probably be getting a Jordan Travis tweet in the summer that he's retiring. So, yeah, we need a wide receiver 2, but what doesn't solve wide receiver 2 is a retired Chris Olave. That's just, look, I get it. It's a violent sport. Technically, you're always one hit away, but he is in Tua territory with the concussions. So trading, and you're obviously only going to trade for him if you want to pay him. You're not going to trade a valuable asset and to rent him. And so that's just, again, a non-solution isn't really a solution because I think him being out and concussed and probably being out of the league, just looking at the business side of it, just to be terse with it, that's probably where it might be headed that way with Olave. Unfortunately, it's very unfortunate. He's obviously a very talented player, but I don't know how you get around the concussion thing. So wide receiver 2 for the Jets, probably. You're hoping that I mean, you're hoping one of your young guys in Corley and Smith can step up. Uh, that's what you're hoping for this year. And if they don't, you're probably talking about wide receiver being one of the primary needs heading into next year's draft. And speaking of next year's draft, like the Jets, until they know they have a long-term quarterback, that's what you got to kind of hoard these draft picks for. Because if you go ahead and you trade a day 2 pick for Chris Olave, okay, you don't have a 3rd round pick next year. So, or do you trade a 2nd round pick for Chris Olave? Maybe you get like a day 3 pick back or whatever the case may be. Then you're going to go into next year with no 2nd round pick, no 3rd round pick, and you might want to be trying to trade up for a quarterback. When you looked at teams like the Browns, like the Rams, position themselves to say, hey, if we need a QB next year, we got the ammo to go get one. The Jets really don't have a surplus of draft picks. So they need to, before you start giving away premium draft capital, they need to see what the deal is with the quarterback situation next year, because until they figure that out, it doesn't even really matter who your wide receivers are. So I don't think this team is in a position to be doing like expensive sign and trades a wide receiver. Although it is a significant need, I just don't think that's the solution that they should go with. And it doesn't really seem to fit what they've done so far. Oh, by the way, so did mention it before, but Dylan Terman, who is my co-host on the podcast we do weekly, it's going to be on a hiatus probably until June, until like mini camp, just because there's not enough topics to fill 45 minutes a week just right now. But he's got his own channel. I'll leave the link to his channel in the description below. Check it out. He's not as handsome as me, but he is smarter, so probably more important there. So check out Dylan. Good channel. Looks like he's putting out some shorter videos if you guys like that kind of thing. Now with Justin Fields, and this was just a random thought that I had. It's not really meant to even be a take, negative or positive. It's more of an observation. Because with Fields, part of the allure of signing him is, well, number one, there just wasn't a lot of good options. Number two, he's paid salary wise probably for where he ranks among NFL starters. If you take out the rookie contracts, he's not really making that much money for a quarterback. So whatever, you need a quarterback. He's there. You pay him market rate. Okay, whatever. But I also think part of it, and the reason why they didn't want a whatever to bring in a Kirk Cousins or somebody like that, is that there is a non-0% chance that he can improve and be a medium to long-term solution at the quarterback position. Whether you think that's a 1% chance or you're really optimistic and you think it's over 50%, it's greater than 0, right? Where Kirk Cousins, it's 0% that he is going to be a long-term solution at 37 years old, right? So that's the allure of Fields. That's part of it. And I do think it's worth noting that he has gotten better in a lot of key areas every single year of his career. So there's probably some coachability there. But when we throw out names like, oh, he's going to be the next Sam Darnold or the next Geno Smith or the next Baker Mayfield. First of all, Baker kind of gets thrown in there willy-nilly, but Baker Mayfield at the time of his rookie season broke the record for touchdown passes by a rookie, and he didn't even start week 1, and he broke the Cleveland Browns playoff drought. And he had like a 17-game season where he was an above average starter and a historic rookie season. And then he was injured and he went to QB hell in Carolina, and then he bounced right back. So Baker is more like has like resurrected his career. It's not as though he had never shown that he could be an NFL starting quarterback. So I don't really think he fits there. But Sam and Geno, okay, the couple of former Jets. Well, Sam goes to Minnesota, probably arguably the best quarterback situation you could have asked for last year, with Kevin O'Connell, with the wide receiver duo. You're playing a bunch of games indoors. And then Geno, they had Shane Waldron, who had been an OC the 2 years prior. They had Dave Canales, who had been a quarterback coach for that team for 2 years, and had been a passing game coordinator for that team for multiple seasons. And now you look at the Jets, and it's Fields, and it is first time OC, and then some other assistant guys who previously weren't doing the job that they're doing now, and none of these guys have worked together in their current roles. That is not to say he cannot do it with the Jets, but in addition to that being a little bit of a challenge, specifically this year, because hang on a second if you think I'm like writing off the Fields experiment. Just hang on. Follow this through. But furthermore, when Aaron Glenn was first talking about Justin Fields, he mentioned, and I'm paraphrasing, but he mentioned that he was going to allow him to really play quarterback. All right. There was an insinuation that he had some training wheels on him in his previous stops. And that's pretty apparent. I haven't watched Fields in Chicago in terms of actually going back and watching him play, like sure from what I remember. But I did watch every drop back in Pittsburgh, and there was a ton of screens, quick passes to the flat, design sprint outs, and just one set reads. And then when they took shots vertically, it was all just stuff up the boundary. So there was like hardly any throws over the middle, anticipation, layered throws, a touch over the middle, where you can obviate there's a lot of one read or check down one read and run. So, and this is by Aaron Glenn's own admission, and Justin Fields has alluded to this too. Like he hasn't been asked or demanded to play real NFL quarterback. So if he's being asked to do that for the first time, and it's the first time OC, and the quarterback's coach who was previously a running backs coach, I don't know if it's as realistic for Fields to pop in the way that those other guys did, because perfect situation with O'Connell, who had been a multiple time play caller. When Geno, there was a lot of continuity among the coaching staff. The QB coach and the OC had both held both of those spots before. And Geno, the year before, he was already in Seattle. He only played a couple of games, but he was on the team learning that offense. Now with Fields, he's almost, in some ways, he's like a first or second year player in terms of actually being asked to play the position. Where Sam was asked to play the position, he was just in QB hell. Geno was asked to play the position. He just, when he finally got a roster around him, he got his jaw broken and he bounced around as a backup, all that. So I don't think it's quite as analogous. And I think you could see a situation where Justin Fields struggles in terms of, okay, we're going to ask you to do this now. You've never really done it. Oh, okay, boom, you throw a pick. Okay, now that's a learning moment. Now you have to go back, rewatch it with your coaches. And then maybe the veteran guy on the staff, Scott, has to tell Engstrand, oh, hey, Engstrand, by the way, when you're teaching Fields this way, you got to do it this way. And then because the OC is learning too. So there's probably going to be some bumps that way. And I think the Jets should lean into that. Look, if the first game that happens, if they ask Fields to, you're going to make those throws over the middle, these anticipation throws, you're going to go through your progressions. And if he's struggling early, I don't think you rip that off and just tell him to go run. I think you, just like you would with a young quarterback who's never been asked to do it, you have to push through those growing pains, because that's the only way you're going to find out if he can do it. But it might be kind of ugly in the beginning. And then I think if you're looking at this as a 2-year deal, where the next season, like if there's progress down the stretch in the next season, where Fields has a year in the offense, he has a year of making those mistakes, being asked to play real quarterback and getting to rewatch the tape and learn where he made mistakes, all that stuff. The OC has now gotten his footing as a play caller. I think you can see a situation where the next season, that would be where the pop happens. Problem for the Jets, if it doesn't happen this year, they're probably going to draft a quarterback. So I think you could see a world, like, that's why my prediction is that Fields probably plays well enough to hold off to Rod Taylor. And that the Jets can win some games, because his last 17 starts, honestly, as a passer and runner combined, aren't horrible. They're like serviceable numbers that you can probably win with. But then they probably, draft a quarterback, and then maybe the next year Fields stays on as a bridge, and the Jets can actually do the thing they never do and sit their rookie QB, and maybe that's where it kind of pops the Fields, and then we get to have a beautiful debate about that. Or maybe he goes and gets paid somewhere else, and the Jets have their guy. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they just fall in love with Fields and extend him, and then they trade that. Whatever the case may be, kind of like similar to the Vikings with Sam Darnold this year. But I just wanted to point that out. Like, I know when people bring those situations up, I don't think it's quite the same. And I think it might be a little bit different for Fields, who, by his own coach's admission, has not really been asked to play NFL quarterback before. And I think lining that all up with the newbies on the offensive coaching staff with an okay supporting cast, I don't know if I'd bet the mortgage on that this year. But if he plays well enough to be retained and they want to sit a kid, I think I would probably be more bullish on it working out the second year if they get some encouraging growth along the way. And we'll talk all soon.